December. We are going to work on a partridge today to celebrate that song that we all know, the 12 Days of Christmas. We're starting on our leaves here, and I am just blocking in all of the leaves with sap green, which is your lighter green in your palette. And I'm just carefully going through and blocking everything in with my number 6 brush. So I learned some pretty cool things about that song, the 12 Days of Christmas. And so the reason why I put Pear Leaves by the Partridge was to reference that song. But you notice I didn't put him in a tree, because we learned in Nature's Art Club that partridges actually make their nests on the ground. So why in the world did that song talk about a partridge being in a pear tree? Well, I did a little bit of research and I found out that song was actually written to help children learn more about the Catholic faith a long, long time ago. During that time, they weren't allowed to talk about their faith openly, and so they taught this song to their children to help them learn about Jesus Christ. So, pretty cool history lesson. So, the partridge is actually a symbol of Christ, because partridges will sacrifice themselves for their young. They'll pretend like they're injured so that the predator will come towards them instead of their children. And so the partridge is a symbol of Jesus Christ. And then the pear tree, the tree is a symbol of the cross that Christ died on. And so there's a lot more to research on that. So I would encourage you to look at that if that interests you. Okay, so now I am going to get some intense blue. That's the darker blue in your palette. And I'm going to use that color. You can use whatever color you want for your partridge. But what I'm doing is I'm just doing a really light coat of that blue, because I'm going to make it into a gray later. So just a very light coating. Mostly water. I'm just moving that around so it's really light. Just doing it on the top of his breast, and then the top of him. Okay, and as you can see, I'm just taking some of the paint off by taking a dry brush and lifting some of that off. So if you get a little too much paint or too much water, that's a great way to take it off. Okay, now I'm going for my yellow ochre. And I'm going to just color in the bottom part of my partridge. And then I'm going for my burnt umber, which is my darker brown in the palette. And I'm just going to go over some of those lines. Again, it's mostly water at this point. I'm just kind of going over some of those lines. Okay, and now I'm getting my cadmium red, which is the orangish red color. I'm going right around his eye. I love that part. And then coming down and doing his feet, which are very bright orange. I'm just using the tip of my brush to do that. And might as well get his beak while we're at it. Okay, So I'm going back to my brown and my blue, and I'm going to mix them together to make a nice black, dark gray. And do my stripes for this partridge. This is called the red-legged partridge. We learned in Nature's Art Club this month that there's a lot of different kinds of partridges. I really loved all of the markings on the red-legged partridge. Love the stripes on his breast and the bright red that's around his eye, and then the black that we're going to do right here around his eye and on his throat. And I also learned that the male and the female look the same. Usually with birds, the male has brighter markings, and the female is usually doesn't have as bright of colors on her. But in this case, they look pretty identical to each other. Okay, so now I'm just adding a little bit of yellow ochre to the top of my bird where I had my blue, my intense blue. And now I'm going to add some burnt umber, just kind of here and there, just kind of going over the lines down there on the feathers, and then just adding it to the top there. And I'm just doing it randomly, just kind of lightly touching it with my brush. Okay. We are almost done here. Just adding a little bit more shadow there with my grayish black that I made. And then coming in with a wet brush and moving it around a bit. And we're done. Unless you want to outline it, like I always do, you can go ahead and get your fine line pen. Make sure it's waterproof and make sure that your painting is dry before you do this. But it brings out, I think it brings out the colors really nicely. It's great, makes it look great. So if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do that. And I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making it. I hope you have a great December, and we'll see you next time. Bye.